Oh, hi. Fancy seeing you here. I decided to do something a little different this week. Instead of doing a written blog, I think the kids call it vlogging. Yeah, so we're gonna try this and see. It is pretty late on Friday evening at the end of the long week, so I have my glass of wine. If you care what kind it is, there's a photo somewhere above. Usually I go with Pinot Noir. Um, Also, let's just say like I'm a mess. I need a haircut and I'm a perfectionist and my nails are atrocious right now. And I thought to myself, maybe I shouldn't film, but that's weird. So, you know, just don't look at it if you don't like it. Um, so I'm not going to look at it because I don't like it. This week I wanted to talk about stress. Yay! Specifically stress triggers. So cheers to that. And there are a lot of things in life, a lot of stressors that the reality is we're not going to be able to control them. There are certainly things that we can try to control, but this is just what it is. So being able to identify what our triggers are is really helpful because we can then take that and start to feel into our bodies how we physically react to whatever that particular trigger is. And the reason I bring this up is I have a few techniques that you can use, and some of them are more helpful depending on maybe what your physical symptoms are. Maybe that's the right word. So this is where we're going. And if you're in, let's jump in. I think we've all heard that when we get stressed out, we tense up. And I know we talk a lot about neck and shoulder tension. Some of us hold tension in our jaw. But even within that, when we say, oh, we tense up, what does that mean for you? And not just that, but I know for me, my stress triggers and the way that I react physically vary for different sort of situations. And so what I may need to do is going to be different depending on which particular thing I'm reacting to. If we can start to identify our triggers first and then feel into how we're reacting, we can really start to pinpoint specifically what our body is doing. And the reason is because we're going to use this for some of the techniques that I have to tell you about. So for me, for example, I'll just give this a little bit of context. Hold on. Yeah, that's good. I have sort of three, I don't know if I would say triggers, but I have three sort of physical states I go into when stressors hit. I have one that is kind of like an acute anxiety, like a panic attack. That's something that I tend to go through when my one cat, Kingston, he is an old man and he's got all kinds of ailments, and there have been many emergency vet visits, and so those are situations where I can get really worked up. So that is sort of one, the real bad panic attack. And then I have sort of the acute stressors, which are maybe dealing with a work situation that really pisses me off, or dealing with someone that really pisses me off. You know, that sort of, your heart starts racing. So that's my second one. And for me, my third is, I guess I think of it as sort of a heightened state. I tend to be in that state when I'm driving. That's one example. It's just kind of this like heightened sense of like tension or awareness. So for me, for each of those three scenarios, I know what my body's going to do in each of those three. And I can start to try to counter it as much as possible in the moment, which has been very helpful. So when I have, for example, the really bad sort of acute anxiety panic, that's where kind of like your whole body tenses up, and it's like I have a shiver from the inside that I just can't get rid of, and I'll feel all the muscles in my neck tense. I will definitely clench my jaw. I mean, and it's everything down to balling up my fists. So that's the kind of like the really tight rubber band. And then the acute, like if I'm talking the sort of acute situations, so work, or when I say work, I mean accounting, not this. Those are the ones I think that most of us would think of with sort of the heart racing and the quick, shallow breath, where I'll still tense. And for me, my tension is I will just kind of raise my shoulders and they stay there. And then I will breathe very, shallow and through my chest. So everything in here gets real tense. And then when I'm in sort of my heightened state, so like a lot of times when I'm driving, which is funny, I'm not a nervous driver at all. I'm not uncomfortable behind the wheel, but it's almost like I hold my breath. So my tension is just like, I don't even know. It's like I'm literally holding my breath. And so when I'm in the car, I have to remind myself to breathe. I wanted to share these because, again, it would be great if we could get rid of all the stressors in life, but that's just not realistic, right? So let's get into it. Let's talk techniques. All right, the first one, I know you're going to be so shocked if you've listened to me ever say anything. The first one is diaphragm breathing. What? I know. And you can combine meditation or something if you want, but diaphragm breathing is really effective at bringing the heart rate down, or at least helping to keep it from continuing to elevate. This is really great. I love diaphragm breathing in like the acute work situation, or where somebody's just pissing me off and there's nothing I can really do about it. The diaphragm breathing works wonders, and it's great because you can do it anywhere. Nobody even has to know that you're doing it. Now here's the thing. Should I tell you about diaphragm breathing? Do we know about this? I feel like I've talked about this a lot. Maybe I'll link, is that what the kids say? Maybe I'll link to some stuff I've talked about with diaphragm breathing. I don't think I'm going to go into it completely here, but in addition to the diaphragm breathing, what you can do along with that is counting breath. And I know that there are a lot of different techniques out there where they involve, 4, 7, 8, different things like that. Here's my issue with that. everybody's capacity is different, and sometimes it can be stressful just trying to hit the numbers that you're supposed to hit with those. So what I would say is, if you like the idea of counting, because this can be great if you need something for your mind to focus on. Sometimes the diaphragm breathing, it may not be enough. Maybe you need something also for your mind to focus on, right? This is great for that, but again, it can be stressful if you're trying to hit certain numbers. So do it the first couple times and count out what feels naturally to you. And you just want to be taking a deep breath in with your belly rising all the way up. Let it exhale nice and slow and long. And then just repeat it and count what's comfortable for you the first couple of times. And then use that as your baseline. So that's one technique you can use. Diaphragm breathing by itself, or add in the counting. Okay, the next one is a little bit like meditation, but not really. Visualization. Now, this can be really good for even sometimes in the middle of a really bad panic attack. But again, this is good for the anxious mind when you need to concentrate on something else. And so there are two, I think, primary ways I would talk about visualization. The first is, depending on what the situation is, if your stress is caused by something you have to do, so maybe you don't like flying and you're gonna fly, visualizing how it's going to go. And I'm talking the smallest details. I'm talking tying your shoes before you walk out of the door. Allowing yourself to both get preoccupied with those small details, but also work through the situation that you're stressed about can be really, really helpful. So that is the first one with visualization. The second is similar to that, but as opposed to it being the stress being a result of or rooted in something that you're nervous about, something specific, this is really good for, and by the way, that's the difference between stress and anxiety. I should have said that a long time ago. Stress is something that we know the cause, right? So when it's stress, we know where it's coming from. Anxiety is most of the time sort of rooted in the unknown. Sure, we have things that we can know about that cause anxiety, but especially if you're just sort of prone to feeling anxious, that's the difference between stress and anxiety, is just knowing and being able to pinpoint the cause versus it not being so clear. Back to the other side of visualization. If you need to preoccupy your mind, a really, really good technique. This is also a really good way to get to sleep, by the way, if you're having trouble falling asleep. Visualize something that you're really familiar with in excruciating detail. So maybe it was a childhood bedroom of yours. Maybe it's your grandmother's living room. I don't know what it is for you, but whatever it is, something that you know very, very well, just go through every detail. That alone, if we really can allow ourselves to get into it, can be so calming. And especially if you're, pick pick something obviously that makes you feel good, right? Don't go through excruciating details of something that's not pleasant. But yeah, this is one of my favorites, and like I said, I use this a lot of times if I'm really struggling to fall asleep, like those nights where your brain just won't shut off. Oh, this one's amazing for that. The last one is a more physical technique to use. I'm going to take a sip of this. This is called progressive muscle relaxation. So there's more detail to it than what I'm going to give you here, and I'll probably put, I saw this really interesting article from, I think it was U of M, University of Michigan, but there's more to it than what I'm going to say. So if you're interested in this, you can look it up. There are whole sort of systems. And yeah, I will link to that Michigan article that I found. But this one is, and this is where I had talked about really pinpointing where you hold tension when you feel that stress trigger hitting. So the way that you do this is on the inhale, you want to tense up, specifically tense up whatever it is that you would normally do when you're stressed, and you want to hold it maybe 4 seconds, 5 seconds. And then on the exhale, you want to not slowly release it, an immediate release, and let everything just melt. And you do that a few times in a row. That is one of it. There's something about it that is so relaxing, and the relief of sort of causing that tension yourself and then letting it all fall away, it feels amazing. Those are my favorite techniques. I use a combination of those every single day. Diaphragm breathing especially, it's just, that's one of those things that the more I do it, the more natural it's starting to feel for me. And it is genuinely helping in those stressful situations. So I hope that maybe one of these techniques helps you. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message. I'm happy to answer whatever I can. See you next time.